Sean Lynn in the pub for a Dram with friends, where we talk about faith, family, food, and fun. Pull up a chair and I'll pour you a drink. Episode 64. We are extremely happy to welcome Tony Spoletini to the pub. Sit back as two old friends share some stories. All right.
Okay.
I look at it to start, though.
Okay, sure.
We are extremely excited today to welcome Tony Spoletini to the pub. Longtime friend. We're talking way back. Yeah. The Wayback Machine. Welcome, Tony.
Oh, thanks for having me, Sean. Excited to be here.
So, everybody that has ever been to a God Squad conference knows who Tony Spoletini is because of the Spolumbo sausage. But for our friends out in the pub that don't know, who is Tony Spoletini?
Well, I'm born and raised Calgarian, Sean. Born to Italian immigrants. That my dad was 14 when he came over in about 1955, and my grandfather was there 2 years prior, and then sent for my dad and my grandma and my aunt, and they came to Calgary. And I was born in Bridgeland, and then I was about 5-6 years old. We moved to Dalhousie, and I ended up going to St. Dominic's. You know, met you at Brébeuf and St. Francis, and was fortunate enough to with yourself play on some championship St. Francis Brown football teams, and then had the opportunity to play college, and then very fortunate enough to play a few years in the pros. And then after that, Sean, I was able to start a business with my cousin Tom and a good friend Mike Spolumbos, and been doing that for almost 30 years now.
Wow. Yes, and I've followed your career, and I still say they should have given you the ball in that Grey Cup game when they were on the 2-yard line. But Wally Bono didn't call me for advice. So.
No. Actually, you bring that up. There was a funny play there, Sean, where we had a play action called, and Danny Barrett called it to me. So it's like we fake. So we had like a triple backfield, and Keevan was in the middle, and Andy McVeigh and I are on either side, and you could either run one way, the other, or run a play action. So Danny calls it to my side, but he thinks he called it to Andy. So he's talking to Andy, saying, and Andy's going, no, you called it to Spally, but it didn't clue in. So we run the play we're supposed to. So I go to block, I go into the end zone, I'm wide open. Danny's looking for Andy, and boom, and he gets sacked. So that was my one chance, Sean, and it did, but it's okay. It wasn't meant to be that day.
Yeah. And that's the thing about football, any given Sunday, right?
That's right, and my friend. Yeah.
And we also played on some championship rugby teams.
Oh, that was, well, you remember there was a strike in 1980. I was in junior, and you were in grade 11. It was the Bishop Carroll beat us with the wishbone, and they broke our streak of city. So the rugby was like the championship that got us kind of back on track. And then we went on a 3-year span. I was fortunate enough to play, and I think you were on 2 of those. And I think they continued to win after that. So
yeah. After you left, they didn't, unfortunately, because I did go back to the record books, because of the now 8 city championships I believe the rugby has in senior boys, 5 of them have had a Lynn on the team. So.
I know, isn't that awesome? I know, it's like dad, brother, son. It's fantastic. But no, it was for a bunch of guys that played football. Rugby was a lot of fun because everybody got to, the guys in the pack, the big linemen got to carry the ball, and
exactly.
And your Uncle Jim was our teacher representative, and then we had the boys from the Rams as our Bill Dawson and the gang. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we went up to Edmonton. I was up there for a funeral a couple of weeks ago, and driving by the hotel brought back fond memories. They come flooding back on us. That was our first ever road trip, I think.
The sevens, right? Yeah. And I was just dead, because that was my first experience. You're running the whole field. You know, and that's why the games are only, what are they, Sean? 7-minute halves or something like that.
7-minute halves. And,
Eldersley Field or what? And basically now the city of Edmonton, like Calgary, that seemed like it was so far out of town, right, Sean? Yep. And now there's communities that go all the way up to that rugby field there. So
yeah, and if you ever get a chance to take, I know you've got some boys that take them to the World Sevens circuit. Like the athleticism of these guys out there is incredible. And
well, I hear there's like Vancouver now has become a very popular and kind of replaced. Did it replace Vegas or did it replace one of the stops on the sevens?
It was an add-on. I don't know if it was a replacement. I took my dad and my sons out there. One of the first years out there, and it's become a mainstay on the circuit. And it moved from Vegas to San Francisco, I think, or one of the California cities.
Cool.
So yeah, it's on either weekend, and so it's definitely worth if you have the chance to do it. It's a big party and it's lots of fun, and you're able to. I'll never forget, we went to the Vancouver one, and it's like 10:30 in the morning, and there's a lineup waiting for the beer session to open, and everybody gets dressed in different costumes, and it's just a great party. And 7-minute halves, it's very fast and constant.
Well, it's a very. I mean, I'm a rugby purist, so I love, rugby union, but the sevens I think is really made for TV and for the fans that love a lot of scoring, right? And so you get to see, like you watch the Islanders, like the Fijians and the Samoans, they can really move in the sevens, right? So, but again, I miss the pack, so I love the traditional rugby, and I think that's pretty fantastic too.
So, because for those that don't know, Tony is an extremely generous man with his business partners, and they have supported God Squad, so I brought out the good stuff here.
I feel very, very, very flattered. Thank you.
So,
cheers.
Cheers. It's this is a Colonel E.H. Taylor. It's harder to get your hands on, but
so smooth, man. Very nice. Very nice.
The big brother of this one. So this is a small batch where I think last year the single barrel version of this won Whiskey of the Year kind of thing.
That's fantastic.
So it's one of the many in the Buffalo Trace line that's very good, and one of these days I'll maybe get a drink of Pappy Van Winkle, which is the top of the line.
It sells out every time. You can, as soon as it comes in, it's gone. Like it's impossible to get.
Serve that at Spalmo's. You're just
we do have a whiskey fennel sausage, right? So you got to try that one. Yeah,
tried that, and I think I've tried most of everything you guys have ever offered.
But definitely wouldn't put Pappy Van Winkle in the sausage mix. No.
Yes, I am the R&D guy for God Squad conferences. I've got to try the sausages before we serve.
Fair enough.
And we're coming up on our 25th annual conference in March, so we will be coming to visit you.
Always there to support, buddy. I think it's a great cause. You got a great bunch of people there, and you're doing good things, and we're just happy to be a part of it. Well,
and they've been a big part of our barbecue outreach because it brings a smile to everybody's face when you put Spalombos on the grill, and it just is a great product. I've had one of our speakers who grew up in Chicago, which is kind of the home of sausage, and he couldn't believe how good the Spalombo sausage was.
Well, you bring up Chicago, Sean. About 20 plus years ago, we were fortunate enough to get Mike Ditka to come and speak at the Italian Sportsman Dinner, and he came into the deli. At that time, I was on the board. I just got off the board a couple years ago, but I was just a new guy on the board and was still speaking a little bit at the head table. And so Mike came into the deli, and Frank Mafrica and I, got to meet him. And he's a big sausage guy, from Pennsylvania and stuff. And he liked the sausage, so we were pretty stoked that Mike Ditka gave it his stamp of approval. And that was pretty neat.
Yeah. So for our American friends, you'll have to come north of the border and give us a try. But yeah, you guys have where does that sense of community and giving come from?
You know, Sean, you bring up, like, you know, you and I were very fortunate. Like, we grew up in great homes, and went to schools where there was great camaraderie on the teams and in the classroom and stuff. I don't ever remember, you know, at Braebuff or at St. Francis seeing a lot of bullying or you know, stuff happens, but not to the extent where it caused you know, trauma or anything of that sort. I thought most of the population got along. Everybody kind of got along. And what I did notice too, that growing up and playing sports, that there was always support, Sean, for our teams, whether it be community teams or school teams. There was always parents volunteering. There was always funds available to get you know, uniforms or to help those that needed a hand up. And when you grow up with all that support and you have an opportunity to return that, I feel it's your obligation. And so Tom, Mike, and I just always felt that we became who we are through the support of family, friends, parents, corporations. That allowed us to reach our athletic goals, and that opened a lot of doors for us. So we want to try and give back those same opportunities, Sean.
And it's so much appreciated and so much needed in the community, and I know you guys, because I used to work downtown when you first opened. And,
the old deli, remember?
Yeah,
it was rough down there, man. It was like there was some different stuff kind of going on in the alley, but it was I don't think a lot of women ventured down at that point, you know, and I think thanks to the police and the community leaders there, they really cleaned up Inglewood and Ramsey, you know, back in mid to late 90s. But in the prior, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and early 90s, Inglewood was rough. Ramsey was pretty rough.
Yeah, and I remember driving by at 3 a.m. and you guys are in the back cutting the meat to make this. Like, you guys worked your butts off to do that.
You know what? But it again, and it goes back to sports, right? And I mean, you're young then, so you got your whole life in front of you. So if it doesn't work out, you know, but you're going to give it your best shot. So yeah, we started like from the ground up. It was just the three of us, and then we had another former teammate, good friend, Craig Watson, help us out for a bit. And we deboned the meat to save money, you know, at that time. And, you know, had a little small grinder and a little 100-pound hydraulic stuffer. It was German equipment from the like early 60s, you know, Sean. And then there was a little deli in the front, and we kept that because we needed some cash flow. And then, you know, we added our Italian flair to that little deli. And actually, the deli kind of grew faster than the sausage business at first. And then once we got into the new place, and it was a federal facility, and the grocery stores started carrying us, and food service, and that, obviously the sausage took off. But you know, the deli kind of paid the bills for a while, and it still is kind of our home where people come and they can try the products, they can have a good lunch, you can sit down and chat and see people, and there's sports memorabilia everywhere. So it's kind of fun, Sean.
Yeah, I tried the parm sandwich there the other day, and if that will fill anybody. There you get your value. Holy, I'd never had that one before. So it's one of the favorites, and very, very filling. Yeah, and you've all been helping out at coaching football as well over the years. So as soon as I retired and we started Spolumbos, I actually coached Dinos for a couple of years while we started Spolumbos, and I had to kind of give that up because it was just, we were working 24/7 and then going to football practice, and I was newlywed, and I figured that wouldn't be a good scenario to stay married if I was never home. But those 2 years with the Dinos, Sean, really kind of got me back into reality, because, you know, you're playing, you know, and the CFL isn't life-changing money, but it's still fun, right? You're getting paid to play a sport, and you know, you're having a lot of fun. And then when it ends, it's kind of like something you've done for most of your life is over. So being able to go back and coach university and remember how much fun it was and why you played when there was no money attached, and that made the transition into normal life
a lot better. And then when I had children and they were old enough to play Atom football and that, I was more than happy to get back coaching, like to coach and stuff.
And it is, and that's where a lot of men, that seems to have been lost amongst the younger generation a bit, that giving to the community there. And how do we encourage our young men to get more involved in the community and be part of that?
I think, Sean, I just, usually it was just by example, right? Because like I said, I'm going to use examples. The Ferzanis were huge idols of ours. They grew up in Bridgeland. They 3 brothers that played football. Those guys were always, Joe and Tom were teachers. John got into business, and then all 3 of them eventually got into business. But they'd substitute teach. They'd always be signing autographs. They'd be doing community stuff. So you see a lot of the former Stampeders back in the day, and even the Flames when they first came, like Jim Poplinski and Perry Berezan and that Joel Otto and all those guys. They were always you see those guys in the community, right, Sean? And so. Yeah, they were good role models. So you just wanted to kind of do the same thing, right? Like you felt very fortunate to live a dream, and if you could give back or go play at a school or help raise some money at a silent auction, why not? And I think what we have to do is we have to show that when you give, you're helping, but it also feels good. You feel good because you're doing something for somebody else, right? And that's a much better feeling, in all sincerity, than getting a gift, is being able to help someone and put a smile on someone's face or make their life better is so much better, Sean, than receiving anything,
Well, I think it's important also to invite the young guys to participate.
Oh, no question. Yes.
And I think we need to work on that, because it's even... putting them on the grill, it's amazing when you give them,
sure,
okay, you're in charge of grilling. Really?
Yeah.
And then
totally.
They feel like they're part of something. And I think that's one of the big components that's missing for our young men, feeling like they're part of something. That's why football and rugby and all those sports helps. And we grew up at St. Francis, where very much a strong identity, right? And
again, our identity, being from a separate school, there was always the faith element that was tied into our sports, and I should probably go to church a lot more than I do, but so I'm not going to paint this picture, Sean, that I'm this, how do you say it? I'm not a hypocrite here. I'm not going to, try and preach but what I did always keep with me was I was glad that I went to a separate school. I mean, we were raised Catholic, and just that faith element, I think, kind of brought us together, and just I think it helped us not only be kinder and more giving and more selfless with our teammates, but I think we were like that in the school. Usually football players are known as being arrogant or roughhousing or bullies or what have you, but that didn't happen at St. Francis, and I honestly think that gave us the edge. You know what I mean? It was that faith was the final little bit of glue that kept us together.
And I can't argue with that, because I agree totally that the importance, and that's where, like when I was coaching rugby, we always said the Our Father before the football game.
Same. We'd always prayed before. I
tried to teach them a new prayer, because I saw it as an opportunity, the St. Michael prayer: defend us in battle, be our safeguard against the wickedness and snares of the devil. Like, great imagery for young men we're going into battle here, boys.
Well, I missed him by a year. Maybe did you catch Father Seaford his last year, Sean, or did he already leave before when you got there too?
He was there, I think, in my grade 10 year. I know I saw him around, but yeah.
So I guess prior to our era, he was a defensive coach, and so I hear from a lot of my good friends like Frank Mafrica that were, they were at Francis. You and I were there early 80s. Those guys were there early to mid 70s, and so they were there right at the peak of a young Gary DeMann, Father Seaford, Mr. McClanahan, and And Father Seaford would just use those classic lines like, "Boys, it's better to give than to receive," like just really fire the guys up. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
you
yes.
know,
Jerry Audia uses that line all the time for rugby. So,
or at times, you could see him on the sidelines, kill them, and so no, it. I felt we were blessed, Sean. We just. Great teammates like yourself. I've known my whole life, and the guys that we played with, whether it be the guys that play basketball or volleyball or track or football or rugby, you always have those ties your whole life,
Yeah,
and
you don't see them for years, and you can still.
It's like yesterday, right?
Yeah,
Sean?
hey.
Yeah, no, there's no question, right? And no, we could run into a few of our teammates like tomorrow, and it was like we'd be talking like we are now. The stories come back, guys like Don Bucky, Chris Ziffel, all those great guys that
I get to see Don Bucky because he's at St. Francis. So
no, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Give him a hard time when I get back
for
there
sure.
Next week. So I know you run a successful restaurant deli. So what do you prepare at home? What do the kids like?
Believe it or not, once and sometimes twice a week they like sausage or they like the Spalumbo burgers. But I've got 3 boys, and so they're carnivores, right? So it's it's steak, it's pork, it's chicken. Mom throws fish in there a little bit too because we got to break it up. They like their pasta, but we really like. And I don't have to tell you, but we really like grilling a lot. We like grilling. We like salads. We like roasted potatoes with rosemary. You know what I mean? And of course the traditional Italian stuff, right? Some good pasta, good sauce. The gnocchi, the lasagna, all that stuff. Nonna, my mom, has a homemade pasta maker, so Nonna sends over fresh pasta. We just throw it in the hot water, make the sauce, Sean. So, but if I have to say one thing, the boys really, really love their meat. They love grilling. And Mateo bought a smoker, so he likes smoking bacon. He'll smoke. He got into spatchcock chicken and all that stuff. So
good for him.
Yeah,
and he's also working on hot sauces as well.
Yeah, he had a summer of that. He's put that on the shelf for now, no pun intended. But he had it was a little project for him. It taught him about entrepreneurism, and he knows how to make some hot sauce now. So I think it was a good summer job and life lesson for him.
Oh, good. So one of the segments, as you know, many of the young men today are struggling with even what a man is. So what advice do you give your 18-year-old self?
I think just to be a gentleman, to respect everyone, especially women. Respect your parents, and not to judge, Sean. I think my mom always said that a measure of someone is how you treat someone that really can't do anything for you. Because it's always good to, how do you say it in our lingo, suck up to somebody that you're looking to get a job from or to get further ahead. But how do you treat someone that really is maybe in a situation that's maybe not as strong as yours, or that can't really help you? And it's like, everyone's a person. Everyone has their own problems. Everyone is struggling. Everyone's trying to do their best. And it's hard sometimes, but I think as you get older, Sean, I would tell my younger self, maybe don't be as critical. Don't be as judgmental. Be a little more thoughtful. And yeah, those are the keys, because on a team, Sean, you're only as good as your weakest link. So if you walk into a locker room and the guys that aren't your backups and the guys that aren't starting, and if they're treated like crap, that team's not a winning team, right? But if you go into a locker room where from your superstar to your weakest player, everyone has the same respect, they all treat each other with respect, well, now you have a unit. And we carried that with our work, because our employees we feel we got a good product, but you got to have great people, Sean, and we are blessed with so many great people, and we like to treat them all the same and make them feel that, and they are all very important to us.
That's awesome, man. The advice I talk is seeing the face of Christ in each person you meet, and that's kind of what you're alluding to there, is that dignity of the human person, as St. John Paul always talked about, right? The dignity of the human person, seeing that in everyone you meet.
Well, if I remember a story that always stuck in my mind, where Jesus Christ, our Savior, met some poor people, and they wanted to wash our Savior's feet, and he said, no, I'm going to wash your feet, because I'm not greater than you. We are, as much as he was God, but we are all equal. And he knelt and he washed.
Well, and he came to serve. And that's what we have to remember, is we're here to serve, not to be served. And
exactly, right?
And you guys have done a great job of doing that to the community year in, year out, even during these tough times. I know you guys have continued to be generous, and I know the community has also responded in kind to you guys.
I tell you what, Sean, when the pandemic hit, and you got to kind of reinvent yourself, right? But a little bit, because you've got all these restrictions, and we're kind of fortunate that the wholesale end was there, because that supplied the grocery stores, and those are necessities. But the deli now is closed. But now you've got to think up. Okay, we've got the take-home meal. You got to get creative, and it's curbside, and you put together these meal packages and these sausage packages, and I'm telling you, the support from friends like yourself, former teammates, former schoolmates, sports, hockey, football. So like you said, and you don't do it for those reasons, Sean, but all the years of trying to give back. When we needed that hand up, boy, did all these groups just come out of the woodwork and go down, and it went out like wildfire. Bantam football, high school football, minor hockey, whatever. Hey, Spolumbo's has got this going on, that, and the support we got, Sean, from that athletic fraternity or even community fraternity was just amazing, my friend. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's a win-win, because it's great product. I know I went down
many times.
Yes. And I phoned our God Squad team and took orders.
Oh, no, I know. I mean,
drove away with 300 pounds.
Oh, easy. Like, Sean, it was so unbelievable. Like, Chris Glass, who's coaching football up in Airdrie, he took orders from most of the football community in Airdrie, and he came in similar to yourself, and he loaded up his truck and just drove it back to Airdrie. That's the kind of stuff that, and it wasn't just happening with us; it was happening with a lot of people. And what was happening even within the restaurants is we were getting restaurants ordering sandwiches from us, and we'd be ordering, pizzas or burgers from friends that we knew. So it was like the food service community was buying food for their staff, and we're buying food for our staff, just trying to show support, solidarity for each other, Sean. And
that's awesome. So Jeff Cavins, one of the guys that wrote the Activated Disciple, talks about riding with your posse. So are there saints that you we talked about a couple before the broadcast, but do you have a couple go-to saints that you'd like to call on?
Let me think. Sean, not so much saints, but people of faith, whether they don't necessarily have to be clergy in that, but just people who live their life, I think, the way God, wanted them to live. And those were like coaches that I had, like Gary, like Peter Cannellin, my father, my mother, you know what I mean? And again, Sean, not to sound corny, but just people, whether they intended to or not, but just I believe we're living the way Christ wanted us to live. They were selfless, they were giving, they were hard when they had to be, and I just always looked up to that. Even just friends, Sean. Not because we're here. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate what I've got other teammates and close friends that have gone on that are very very generous and very giving. So I look up to those people in my circle that I believe are living as Christ would want them to live.
Well, and that's, you bring up something that's so important. It's that hidden life that so many of our people do, and that's one of the reasons I like doing this podcast. I try to get some of the big names, but I also try to get guys down in the trenches that are working every day to try and make the world a better place. And you're definitely you're well known around Calgary for sure, but you're down in the trenches trying to make a better world every day, and I really appreciate that. And so I don't know if you know, but the Gaelic whiskey comes from a Gaelic term called Ishkabaha, which means water of life. And I pray that you continue to lead many souls to the true water of life. And thank you for
thank you, Sean.
taking time out of your day.
Thank you for having me, Bello. Appreciate it. Cheers.
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 I hope you are enjoying this content. Please like and subscribe, share with a friend. Also, go to godsquad.ca where you can pray with us and for us, and consider donating so that we can continue our mission, reaching men wherever they're at. Thank you.